I'll teach you everything you need to know about GUI Intermediate in 5 minutes. So I'm going to be using this frame and just add it like I showed you in the last video. There are two ways to size and position the GUI elements. If you go on the properties of the frame, you see this position property. These first two numbers, the 0 and this 0, they're for the x-axis, and these two numbers for the y-axis. Let's focus on just the x-axis right now. The first number is known as a scale, and it takes in a number 0 to 1. 0 being all the way on the left side of the screen, 1 being all the way to the right of the screen. If I change it to 0.5, it moves the GUI, it moves the frame to halfway across the screen. 0.5 is 50%. 0.25, a quarter of the screen. 0.75, 3/4 of the screen on the x-axis. And if I set it to 1, you can't even see it because it's pushed all the way across the side. You can just barely see it. But let's go ahead and set it to 0.5 again. Even if the screen size changes to be tiny, it'll still start at that halfway point of the screen. So you can see an advantage of doing this is that it works the same on different screen sizes. Even if it's small, it'll still be 50% or whatever other percent you put in. This second number just moves it pixels. Like if you want to move it 100 pixels to the right, type in 100 pixels. Maybe you want to move it 250 pixels to the right, move 250 pixels to the right. This is known as the offset. If we resize the screen now, notice how the frame stays right where it is. It doesn't nudge at all, it doesn't move. And that is why there's two methods for resizing GUIs. Sometimes you want to position them so that it scales, and also you might want to add a little like offset. You can use a combination of both. Like you want it to move 50% of the screen, then you want to move it 200 pixels to the right on top of that 50%. And you can see how that looks. And for the y-axis, it works the same way. You can do like 0.25%. And then you can also move it a certain amount of pixels. Maybe you could even do like -10 pixels and it'll go back up 10 pixels. Yeah, you can combine all four of them. Let's move it back to 0 on every axis. Let me show you the size. And let's make the size 0 on everything too. The size works the same way. First number is the percent. So if we make this 0.5, 0.5, you see it takes up 50% of the screen in the x-axis, 50% in the y-axis. And it also scales up with it because the percentage is based on the screen size. If I scale it, it scales along with it. And before we had it at 100, 100, and you saw that it was a nice little box. Notice how it doesn't scale because it's just pixels. Pixels are the same size no matter what the screen is. And again, you can combine, like you want it to be 50% of the screen plus 100 pixels or minus 100 pixels, and there you go. You can combine multiple of them. So yeah, sometimes you might think if you do 0.5 and 0.5, if you make these numbers the same, then it'll be a nice perfect box. Like if you do 100, 100 on the offset, it's a nice perfect box. But remember, it's based on the screen size. If the screen size is not a perfect square, then 50% of one axis is going to be longer than 50% on the other axis. I mean, if I made this into a perfect square, then the frame would be a perfect square too, but I don't know any square screen sizes. Keep in mind that most people's screens are longer in the x-axis.